No longer votes of censure or votes of confidence. The house is dead. You know, you can teach other people how to speak the English language. You can teach them how to practice Christianity. But you cannot teach them how to govern themselves. That they must learn themselves. King Opoku-Ware of the Ashanti in Ghana. He is part of a royal heritage which dates back 400 years. Long before colonization, Africans had evolved political systems of their own which worked. The Ashanti will tell you that a structure of government has to have roots and a sense of tradition before it can be stable. And stability requires social order and a sense of community among the people. Africa's search for these qualities, her struggle for elusive political tranquility, is the theme of this program. When Europeans arrived in Ashanti territory with their gifts of silks and schnapps, they found a society rich in tradition. The praise singers tell of the ancestor who brought the great stool of authority down from the heavens to give the first king his royal mandate. That authority is only partially hereditary. It's passed on by a senior woman in the royal family called the Queen Mother, who has a central role in choosing the successor. Ashanti chiefs do not hold office by right. They are chosen after consultation, and their selection can be challenged.
Mama baba kai. Ani ya pensa na ni ma dia. Ana na oda na mi chire mo no. Second da we ma dia ntimi kan chen say. Mi we ato one tra ho na nka won tietie man.
Ni bi ta mo patient tie. Ta o mo ba. Ye wo se me ba ka kire mo. Ta o se mo peso a.
Na da we ma ya pasum die ka ta no ba ya se ya pasum die.
Na o pe tie.
Na won tietie ma ya. Won tietie ma ya de pa kure.
When consensus is reached, everyone swears allegiance to the new chief through the district queen mother who nominated him. Collective responsibility is affirmed. The new chief is confirmed and declares his allegiance to the Santahini, his paramount chief. But this empire has been reduced to a regional government in Ghana. Deeply rooted in tradition, it may be, but in the modern state, real power in countries. If the political institutions we inherited did not prove effective, one major reason was another legacy from the West, the standing army. Soldiers have been the most powerful force in African politics since independence, ushering in their champions, Nimeri, Doo, Bokassa, Mobutu, Amin. By weakening Africa's ancient institutions and creating modern armies, colonialism has left the continent threatened by two forces: the danger of anarchy in the sense of too little government, and the peril of tyranny when there is too much. In desperation, Africans still look to foreign models as a solution to their constitutional ills. But so far, none of these imported experiments is yet deeply rooted. All are too easily destroyed by the predominant power in the continent, the gun. Ghana, 31st December 1981.
Today, we initiated a holy war.
Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings stages his second coup.
To this end, the following measures are hereby taken. 1. The 1979 Third Republican Constitution of Ghana is suspended. 2. For the avoidance of any doubts, the following are emphasized. A. The President, the Vice President, and all ministers and their deputies are dismissed from office. B. Parliament is dissolved. C. The Council of State is abolished. D. All political parties are proscribed. It is therefore illegal for any person or persons to belong to or operate under any party.
Across the continent, it has repeatedly been demonstrated that in an underdeveloped country, power does often reside among those who control the means of destruction rather than those in charge of the means of production.
We men of the Uganda Armed Forces have this day decided to take over power from Obote and hand it to our fellow soldier, Major General Idi Amin Dada.
The members of the Defense Council and the entire people of Uganda consider me I am the conqueror of the British Empire.
The record of coups across Africa reads almost like the directory of the Organization of African Unity. Over 70 coups in a quarter of a century. Only Africa south of the equator seems less afflicted. The Rawlings rhetoric now speaks of mobilizing both hoe and gun.
The right to defend your freedom is a must. Sure. And the means of having to do so is something you will have to acquire.
Oh no. It's a long way off. We've lost a lot of time having to democratize violence. She means only being a while here later. Oh no. Okay. Right from America to China. I'm a more like 2 track and off and 10-year-old children can be. Even if it's the democratization of violence. On an ear. I can go to make a shishibo. Bullets, guns, was obviously going to dominate you. On an ear. And that's the way it's been. That's the way it is in the third world.
The military's monopoly of the gun must be broken if the people are to prevail. Ironically, many Americans would agree with Radical Rawlings that the people have a democratic right to bear arms. Whether that results in stability is another question.
The right to defend, your freedom. To enable Koni soldier to get used to the idea, that civilian also has the right, to hold a weapon. First you have to inculcate the idea into his head. And it's not an easy thing to do.
The wind of change blowing through the Belgian Congo, and down comes the Belgian flag in Leopoldville, a few days in fact in advance of independence. Elected as Prime Minister of the new Congo Republic, Mr. Patrice Lumumba receives congratulations from members of both Houses of Parliament.
They caught him on his way to Stanleyville and flew him back. Patrice Lumumba securely wrote.
No story illustrated the fragility of Africa's political foundations more than the Congo, now Zaire. The Belgians had done nothing to And the answer has been yes. African politics haven't been the same since. Secondly, will the military transform the nature of African economies? And the answer has been no. Soldiers, as soldiers, have made very little difference. And so you may think this is an ominous symbol of the marriage between the military and politics in Africa. But remember, at least as ominous is the divorce between the military and the economy, between defense and development. Out of Africa's failures in development and our incapacity to find viable and stable government has emerged a great human tragedy. Millions are destitute. It's impossible to be sure where political asylum ends and economic refuge begins. By most standards, this ought to be the hell that we are running away from. But in fact, it is the haven towards which many people are moving, seeking refuge. They are still arriving on donkeys and mules, on foot, on rickety cars. To have left their homes, their friends, the burial places of their ancestors in exchange for this, things must have been pretty desperate. It's the refugee problem in Africa. It's growing. In Africa, it's already larger than in the Middle East with its displaced Palestinians, larger than in South Asia with the destitute of Afghanistan on the run, larger than Indochina with the boat people and people escaping from Kampuchea. With less than a tenth of the population of the world, we have more than half the world's refugee problem, and there is no let-up in sight. Turning artificial territories into living nations is a slow and agonizing process, an evolution which in Europe took hundreds of years. Post-colonial Africa has had only a quarter of a century of trial and error. Nigeria is an enormous political laboratory. It has 100 million people. The 1983 election was the biggest in Africa's history and bigger than any election in Western European experience.
One destiny, one God. MPN, superpower. Lagos State, MPN. Ogun State, MPN. Oyo State, MPN.
President Shehu Shagari was seeking re-election under the banner of the NPN, the National Party of Nigeria, competing against 5 other candidates. It was supposed to be an American-style election, with candidates required to show support across religious and ethnic lines.
One God.
But traditional allegiances are not easily set aside. President Shagari, a northern Muslim, attempted to present himself as a national rather than regional figure.
I am extremely happy to be here at home in Ogbomoso. This is the city that I love so much, because I know you love me, I know you love the NPN. Time has passed when we talk of tribal parties. We have come a long way since the First Republic. We have come into the Second Republic, where Nigeria must be one, as depicted by our party, One Nation, One Destiny. We do not talk of tribes in the NPN. All Nigerians are equal, and all Nigerians must be given equal opportunity, irrespective of their tribe, irrespective of their culture, irrespective of where they come from. This election is going to be held in peace, and we have made enough arrangements, adequate arrangements, to maintain law and order, and we don't care who is going to raise trouble. We are going to deal with him very squarely.
The Unity Party of Nigeria, led by Chief Obafemi Awolowo, was Shagari's strongest challenger.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to vote that way in as the president of Nigeria, come and go to this Nigerian city. This day you are going to put your hand.
Awolowo's election platform was of moderately socialist goals. But so strong was ethnic loyalty that he won little support outside his fellow Yoruba people. Nigerians voted for so-called tribe more enthusiastically than for ideology or social class. Awolowo himself was a no-nonsense politician.
Maybe you do not know that I'm going from here to Port Harcourt and from Port Harcourt to Calabar this same day. So I haven't got time this morning for some singing. Just listen to me and then we carry on singing songs after I've left.
In their ancestral systems of rule, Nigerians operated government by consensus. Western-style elections, on the other hand, are inherently competitive. A clash has arisen between traditions of slow persuasion and Western electoral shortcuts of winner-takes-all. Majority rule has replaced the concord of tradition. In a Western-style election, Nigerians were supposed to exchange consensus for competition. Alas, they exchanged consensus for actual conflict. Violence, fraud, and incompetence marred voting in Nigeria, just as it had many African elections before.
6, 7, 8, 9.
Fictitious names, fraudulent counting, counterfeit ballot boxes. Once again, an alien system of choosing a government failed to stand up to African realities. All the parties cheated, though Shagari would probably have won had there been no fraud. But his followers decided to take no chances.
Today, we are witnessing the transition from one civilian administration to another. This is a very significant landmark in our democratic experiment. It is also a demonstration that Africans are capable of establishing their government through the ballot box under the democratic process of a multi-party system.
The one political party nobody voted for was the military. They overthrew Shagari and the American model of government within months. General Muhammad Buhari arrived to rid the country of indiscipline, a claim soldiers usually make when seizing power. But during his short reign, Nigeria moved closer to tyranny than ever before. Close behind was General Ibrahim Babangida, a more liberal soldier, a key factor in some of the previous military changes of government. In August 1985, he assumed supreme power himself and corrected some of the human rights violations of the Buhari regime. Nigeria is a volatile society which paradoxically produces self-effacing and sometimes humble heads of state. Yet being at the top is a high-risk job. Nigeria has had 9 leaders since independence in 1960. 3 were killed, 2 are in prison, and 1 in exile. In general, under the soldiers, Nigeria tilts towards dictatorship. Under the politicians, Nigeria leans towards anarchy. But in all the pendulum swings of power, no one has as yet managed to crush Nigeria's abiding spirit and sense of theater. Even in the toughest days of the Buhari administration, Nigerians never lost the capacity to laugh at themselves and at their rulers. General Buhari, then head of state, at a play in his honor entitled The Roadblock. Security forces as well as the traveling public were ridiculed and satirized mercilessly.
Open the door by force! Okay, sir.
Even repressive rulers had long learned to allow for political comedy.
This is not waiting. This is not artificial breast. I say you might talk of artificial breast. You don't enter trouble.
The message of this play remains clear. If the security forces make a mess of the job, they had better go back to the barracks. Boredom in the barracks encourages coups. The Nigerian Staff College has been involved in hatching some of them.
Timing is important, and you've got to, if you're going to succeed in any sort of complicated plan of war, as we're about to discuss, you've got to have a sense of timing.
The barracks and the military college have replaced the colonial prison as the university for future leaders. The colonial jail produced men like Nkrumah of Ghana and Kaunda of Zambia. Today, the faces of future presidents are more likely to be found among military officers at an African staff college.
this lecture today is really particularly for officers of your own type and of your own caliber who are going to be faced with decisions on defense policies, decisions relating to the national policy, and therefore you need to be clearly aware of our geopolitical setting. Decisions taken at the core of the world economy would affect us whether we like such decisions or not. And therefore it is extremely important for us to really have a very clear perspective.
Okay, we've all listened to the problem. Now what is the answer?
Lieutenant Colonel Moses Effiong was an instructor at the Staff College. Since we filmed him, he has been jailed for life for attempting a coup. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Iyoshi was another instructor.
From where I'm saying, Mohammed, is that correct?
The Nigerian army attracts some of the best brains in the land.
If you follow it, it runs from right to left or left to right. Really doesn't matter. You can see the ridge, right?
Yes, sir.
But exactly whereabout is the farm.
The farmland.
Iyoshi was seen as one of Nigeria's most brilliant up-and-coming officers.
Just about, yes, Mohammed is just about right.
In December 1985, he also was arrested and accused of being one of the coup leaders. The charge against him included treason, a capital offense.
I used to hear this phrase, you can hit them up for 6.
Hit them up for 6.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's Montgomery's favorite phrase. I didn't get to know what the hell it was until I went to Kamali and
what is it?
I saw it. It's North African campaign. It's the famous cricket.
The cricket?
Yeah.
When you take
hit the upper 6.
Man right out of the ground.
Yes. I saw the phrase. I said, gosh, so that is what it's all about.
In March 1986, Iyoshi was executed. When the military hold power in an Islamic society, as in Sudan, plotting against the regime occurs less often. It's partly because a shared religion provides a sense of community. Jafar Nimeri ruled Sudan for 16 years after seizing power in 1969. He survived despite changing his ideological colors many times. But Sudan has an Achilles heel, the North-South divide. Since independence, there's been unrelenting conflict between Muslim North and the non-Muslim South. Twice it's erupted into civil war. The Northerners have a large and costly army, but still couldn't control the South's bid for secession. The first war lasted 17 years and was estimated to have taken 500,000 lives. 1 million more fled their homes. A peace was patched up in 1972, but after a decade of uneasy truce, the army is back, fighting again. The issue this time is different. Both sides accept the principle of one Sudan. The question is who should run it and how it should be governed. National unity is as remote as ever. The wounds that were first opened in the far-off colonial days continue to bleed. From Khartoum, the capital, the British pursued their contradictory policy. Territorially, they wanted North and South to be united into one country. Culturally and religiously, Britain wanted the two parts to remain separate, to curb the spread of Islam and of Arab influence. The British kept Southerners insulated from Muslim Northerners. but encouraged Christian missionaries to come in instead. A kind of north-south apartheid was created, separate homelands. The consequences for Sudanese stability are still being felt. Under Nimeri's military government, Sudan did maintain a veneer of democracy. A People's Assembly was established with civilian and military members. It was bilingual, Arabic for the north, English for the convenience of southerners.
The question of an unsettled issue of who is the custodian of the Arab interest. Which country? Where is the locus of the Arab interest? Is it in Egypt? Is it in Saudi Arabia? Is it in Libya? Is it in Syria? Is it in Iraq? Is it in Lebanon?
The issue of whether Sudan belongs to the Arab world or to Black Africa was a regular subject of debate. Whether the discussion had any effect on the military government's policies is another matter.
We in the Sudan, as Sudanese, and we have to underline this because this is very crucial and important in my opinion, we should look on the foreign policy away from the traditional concept that foreign policy is being practiced on neighborhood basis.
When African soldiers capture power, they claim that they are here to restore discipline. When civilians return, they claim they are here to restore dialogue. A parliamentary system of this kind is a compromise between those two ambitions. But in addition, it's a safety valve. You see, Sudan is the only country in Africa where a military government was actually overthrown by civilians. Way back in 1964, they haven't forgotten. Don't push civilians too far, give them a safety valve. History repeated itself in 1985. Civilians had again had enough of tyranny. Not even President Nimeri's opportunistic establishment of the Islamic State could stave off the anger of the masses. To avert a popular revolution, the army removed Nimeri from office. The military promised to hold elections and did so within a year. The great-grandson of the legendary Muslim leader who fought the British in the 19th century is Sadiq al-Mahdi. In 1986, he became Sudan's new prime minister. This Oxford-educated politician is himself a bridge between Islam and modernity. He leads a coalition government in a multi-party parliament. Of the Mahdi state. But while Islam is a unifying factor among northern people, it is still a threat to north-south cohesion. Sudan continues to suffer the trauma of being two nations within one state.
Hello? You better shut up when I'm talking, okay? Hello, listen.
Ghanaian leader, Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings.
All planters, do you have corn? I'm talking about planters, not diggers. Let me see you by the hand. Up. Good. Now, those of you who have the corn sacks, go and supply. But you've got corn in your left hand. Jesus Christ. Okay. Now, those of you with the sacks, better watch out and feed us, okay? Now, where is he? You take over.
Under Rawlings, Ghana has rediscovered a sense of direction. He is pursuing a policy of socialism, but the slogans are often more militant than the practice.
And the line is not straight. Move!
The country does need strong leadership. One urgent goal is to re-establish respect for farming. Another is to improve efficiency on the land.
The point is, as they dig the holes, you, the planters, put the seeds in their holes. All right? Every digger, make sure you've got a plant.
Rawlings' high-profile politics include setting a public example in the fields and encouraging the masses to cooperate in self-help.
It is only by collective effort that the nation's problems can be solved. There are still some people who would like the nation to go back to childhood. Such a person was the man from the Osu People's Defense Committee, most unfortunate, who got up to speak at the budget debate at Parliament House recently, and who said that everything was fine when the white man was here. And so we should bring him back to help us. This man and others who think like him longs for the dependency of childhood. But we are grown up, or should be. We're supposed to be old enough to realize that the nation is now paying the rest of the outstanding bill for those easier days when so many of our resources were squandered.
Although Rawlings is a military man, he is more concerned with mobilizing for development than for war. His concept of economic conscription is an attempt to enlist more and more citizens into the process of production and social transformation. But Ghana's economy is fragile. The IMF has helped with loans, but ordinary workers still haven't seen much benefit. Political stability remains elusive, and Rawlings' own position is far from secure. To safeguard both his and the country's future,
MS Kumana TV